Oh, there are so many.
Yep.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming to Poetry in the Parlor, what we're going to call it. People who have traveled far and wide over the great regions of this country, I guess, still. We have 11 poets who are going to be reading this evening. All of them are fucking amazing, and I can't wait to hear you all read. We're going to be starting off with a local poet, and they say you always lead with your best foot forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, Mr. Jim McGowin.
Thank you. I wouldn't say best foot, but
Jimothy.
Left foot.
All right, so stupid weather. Let me say that because if you haven't been to the pavilion we were gonna read at, it's fucking sweet.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
We checked it out.
A friend of mine, Drew Gowan, was having live music shows there, like during the pandemic, to keep people from going too stir crazy. So it's a great spot.
Drew was actually the reason he told me, like, hey, dude, no one's allowed to book this.
Yeah, you just show up, man. Yeah. And anyway, hello everybody, people I don't know, people I do know. I'll just read a couple, I guess. Some of you may not have heard from my books, so I'll read a couple out of that, and then maybe I'll read one new one I just finished this morning. This is called I, Ophelia. I haven't read this one in a while. This cold month's body, save my hand from turning too many door handles. Stay bare here a while, slack and still. And these fecund hands look small now, like snow, piled at the door of my little pieces of graves. Bright songs around the edges scarred, 2 poems that were left in the street caught up in a gust, and the prescribed debt of bleached ink to the resolute sun. In the door, naked female, skull matriarch, the small sigh, song of my body, I am a legacy of escape. To speak is to sometimes go gray as the grave, a riddle sought in the soil of bone dialects, this idea of death, of my skull clean and pecked at by worshipping birds, then wreathed with violets. See there, the reflection at the foot of the bed, the floor all ready to receive our faultless sleep. What ghost moves there, displeased with its fine rookery? The mirror skeleton tree, shattering in a small dream to cut my feet. It is a dream in colors and dark figures, a ring of fire for all the sweet graves. So saith the tomb back to the light, and my cramped body, my silly head, the dove, gray, looking down the tip of the mouth, dark with wrongful dust, alighting on the tip of the worm. I did not waste a woman's heart for this legacy, did I? I want to see the words grinning around the mouth, the larynx, the beloved skull kissed and entombed in a silk curtain by knives. And I say, less and less brightly too, such as the sun can be obscured. Poetry is not a sigh in the end of the mouth. It slides through bone to hit the reflection that rattles in the dark marrow, the creeping hall of memory, and this tree conceals a dread harpy watching for poetry in the carcasses, a small, sharp mouth curiously hooked, haunting the branches for months, awaiting a sign. Proof that death is the remedy prophesied in the doorsteps of mausoleums, which are nothing more than flocks of doves temporarily silenced of their mournful groaning, their thousands of beaks seeking and then choking on revenge. I can't remember the last time I read it. I think it was before coronavirus. Let's see. This is part 4 of a 5-part thing that I wrote called Sing Us a Song so that so many poets will no longer need to commit suicide, but that you can read them all separately, so I'll just read you this part. Part 4. When you were a child, what calling birds did you try to fall asleep to, hiding from the hell of tangled blankets, weeping beneath the night's conspiracies, breathing through too many open windows? Did you wince from the height of your own voice, hearing the sound of its yearning from below, stuttering on the potable words you drank from, words that would one day become a storm that would submerge your lost days. The secreted notes from anagogic grave robbers delivered to your dreaming forehead in beads of sweat like a lost address, exponentially expanding drag to ultimately overcome any lift you gained from carefully unfolding all the voices. Admired for your melancholy instrument, tuned and forgotten, but not lost, from a childhood begged forth in the delicate mechanism of the wrist, and singing out of blind doll eyes to an inversion of images, seeking the elusive fortunes divine from the ashes of feathers and bones. And in the end, it was the way it had to be. Your words were mirrors of your footsteps, a bridge of little works, little flower drifts, little fugues, an oeuvre scrawled in defiance with a punctuation of barbiturates, choosing to let your words fall asleep on another indifferent Monday. And I read you this. I finished this morning at work. Long story. I got free time at work sometimes, so some of you guys know. And it's going to hopefully come out in my next book. I have one book called Murmuration. Next book's supposed to be called Muse, I think. But this is, I don't like the title, so we'll just call it 7/14/21. In the afternoon, you named it the wind, called it up loudly to your lips just to be lost in a whisper, abruptly mute because you dared to be precarious with your charm. You said the dead are vicariously voiced and formed with imprecise eyes, and the tragedy lies in our own fingers, what little they can grasp, or oftentimes purposefully misplace. The ease at which a gaze can linger is in itself a dreamy omen, built from the grace of our savage archaeology and superstitious upbringing, suppressing the monuments of blood, that perfumed water of drowning, while we, the eloquence of silt, lay mounding in suggestive immorality. Redemption in a mote and in a blink dispelled, a silhouette effaced and unavailing smoke of hell, left restless to sink, devout to the absence of hemisect shadow, blinded in Sisyphean dream, everlastingly heathen poised and keenly ravenous, to be devoured by the fatal wounds of your slippery lexicon, the urge of gliding along a tongue and lip explicitly honed, paling in the purity of the flesh's shiver, the arch splendor split along the median hoax, a spate of sonnets in skin and asphodel surge. The urge was provoked to emote you into foolhardy cinders, burning only in the most primitive regions, even if your breathless chest is just a theater of wishful witchery, the sundered scenery of two naked hemispheres, a niche of heaven secreted within a puppet of earth, obscured by your turning shoulder, tangling dimness around the burning... Sorry, I've never read this out before. Tangling dimness around the burning sworn by the body, retracing your runes around the limits of my eyelids, an epigraphic promenade, unflinchingly inscribed with gimmicks and binge, the sordid arch of my atrium ribs curtailed and agony rebuked, vividly gilded with singed ruin of subdued. I was seduced by the kinesis of your grinding stone that chose never to carve out a path. Instead, the bruising crush, salt gushing and blinding the eyes into begrimed windows, breaching contorted hands with the damnation of crumpled pages. Your bequeath, I didn't add it here, bequeathing an injurious epilogue, bled into the thankless and thirsty ground beneath, the inky shape of a question mark dreamer, knees bent in a polysyllable curse, a single name whispered over and over again, dutifully beautified into verse. All right.
Another round of applause for Mr. Z McGowin. So, but half the poets you're going to be reading tonight are people who I've never read, but people who I've got to meet during the pandemic and who I have thought are just fucking awesome. And the next poet will be I've had the pleasure to read his book, and I'm I can't wait to hear him read some of the stuff live. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Indiana, Mr. Tim Heerdink.
It's nice to see you all on this very wonderful afternoon. Tim Heerdink. As he said, I'm going to read one from my, if you like space and science fiction and all that, I love it. I went off the different direction. I usually write about the Holocaust and mental health and other stuff, but decided to do something different. So I'm the president of the Midwest Writers Guild in the Evansville area, but kind of goes around the, Midwest, really. Anyone who wants to be in can. And we just did a chapbook series this year, so this is one of the releases we did. Checking tickets on Umalnura. This first one's called A Summoning. In the calm stillness of the third Tuesdays to the New Moon, after a gathering with like-minded fellows at the Bocal to jive and shout about what makes us completely tick, while flat screens entertain with sports recaps for those who'd rather down good drink and a bite or two instead of hearing the sound permeating from upon the stage. A frigid force caresses me as I traverse my front yard so I can collect waste of which we hope they dispose. Some unknown influence coerces me to look upward and happens to spot the Big Dipper directly above with its handle placed to the left with other lights from constellations circling in its distant company. There's no telling how long I must have stood and stared. I couldn't break myself free of this mysterious hold like a hypnotized participant stuck in the depths of a trance. Down the street a ways, circling around the neighborhood, soft tones started to reverberate within the atmosphere and a pattern of 4 notes remaining in repetition. Doo, 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 doo. Eyes fixated only on the plethora of stars before me, there's a sensation now not really in my body, that something is calling for my isolated attention. Its face returns a gaze as movement returns to my limbs. The music has stopped for the time being, but I can't help to think that maybe we're not alone in this great catastrophe we all seem to find ourselves. So, one of my Holocaust books, I donate the money I make off of my Holocaust books to Candles Holocaust Museum. So anytime you're going through Terre Haute, there's a really cool museum there. It was founded by Auschwitz survivor Eva Moses Kor. I'll go ahead and read the one I wrote about her. It's called A-70. No, that's the one of my sister. It's Lady in Blue. Sorry, it's been a second. Lady in Blue. She always wore these stark blue colors. She was only like 4'6" or 9" or something like that, and she wanted to stand out in the crowd so people knew. Plus, she was just very angsty. But Lady in Blue, for even Moses Kor. Torn from her mother like 2 poles of opposites, childhood ended at the selection platform. With a mate from the womb, a pact to survive the frost, hunger, and slaughter among the endless obstacles that lied within the walls of hell. Staring an angel of death in the face as he poked and recorded the outcome, knowing that someday every reason for dancing hands in the air as the rest of the world cheered in victory, forgiveness, the key. Message, and she passed away a couple of years ago, but her message was, forgive people who do wrong against you, because if you have that seed of hate in your heart and everything, it only festers and infects and doesn't help anything. And so she, instead of having hatred and war, just try and patch things and without forgetting the Holocaust, but kind of trying to heal. So that's kind of like my message with this book, is finding a point in which you can heal. Another poem I like to read is called Farewell Fanfare in B minor. All the horns blow simultaneously in tune for the ones being marched to a still moment. Let the singer serenade with their swan songs while the majority pray that wood can triumph over flame. The sun shall rise on the very last day, waving its rays to welcome earth and its eternal inhabitants. Hell, the birds may decide to whistle as well and rejoice. I've heard one network has an orchestral broadcast set to play Nearer My God to Thee when the sky begins to fall. It's also been said that a band used the same hymn to calm the dune who couldn't escape the Titanic. Someone must have taken note and thought it not their time to depart. Surely there'll be others running from death or glued to the silver screens, as often is the case, watching overpaid suits quickly lose their thought process as pools of perspiration mixed with tears blind them from the present. There's no hiding from the Dark Angel forever. Instead of joining in the looting and chaos, my plan is to embrace my girls and let the Tchaikovsky vinyl soothe us, knowing there's no place I'd rather be. So, I've put out a decent amount of work in the past year, but I started out this tour that Tony and I are kind of revamping last year, supporting this book of poems dealing with loss, grief, mental health, and suicide and all that. And it's called The Human Remains. About 10 years ago this summer, I attempted to take my own life, and luckily I'm still here. So I try to connect with people and tell them that there's ways, writing is a way that helps me cope with, a lot of issues. This poem doesn't really particularly have anything to do with that, but it is a nice poem, and I have a variety. My brother-in-law just really hates pictures. He won't smile for nothing. So it inspired me with this conversation. This poem's called Why They Call It a Shoot. There once was a time where death came with a bang, stemming from the smoke of unholstered barrel straight into your thick, flubbery gut so you can bleed out or be consumed from infection. One didn't have to be such a great marksman back in those days. Arab brought its own weapons to the table before modern medicine came with its cures. Not everyone likes their picture taken. It's bad luck, my brother-in-law would tend to say as he covers his face from the snapping screens, which only seem to be out and ready. Photographs lacked the importance they held in the past. A portrait well prepared by a professional with a busting bulb takes more effort than wonky expressions pretending to be happiness for nobody but the cloud to see. Smiles are forced for the quick flash because each shot taken takes another little piece of identity until eventually there's nothing left but dead eyes staring forward like a phantom from the past. Let's see. So this is my first book on the Holocaust, and I wrote one. I sent to Elie Wiesel, and he was a really good supporter. I mean, he was a Holocaust survivor, but he did a lot for that cause. And right before he passed away in 2016, I sent him a letter with a couple of poems, and I was just so glad. I told him I wanted to meet him, but I got to send him some of my work, and he got to read. He sent me a letter back that I included in the bag. I just thought that was it's neat to connect with those people. This one's called Outside the Walls, The Concentration. The date is October 2015, and you have lost part of your hearing. Your teenage great-grandchildren are a bother, always complaining every time they have to visit, as though you are a nuisance that should just fall over dead already, so their parents can gain what little you have left. Now you are 83, but when the war ended, you were only 13. Those little children have no idea of what you've seen. They pour fresh milk down the sink, and you remember a time when, for just one sip, you would give anything. In 1943, just east of Germany, and the horrors of Auschwitz-Birkenau awaited you. Your family was put inside the walls after being forced from the ghetto in Saget. The skin a little tighter on your bones, yet you were still healthy. Deinen Eltern waren allemaal nicht mit dir. That was before the selection process began. Links, yelled the officer as he pointed to you and your mother, an angel who was too far broken for the factory. Your father stepped in, begging for your life, screaming, Sie kann arbeiten! You were spared from that death, but that was just the beginning. All the starvation and frostbite and witnessing the slaughter of the people reduced to numbers made you who you are today. And even though you have survived, part of you still cries. Every time you see smoke rise and you whisper, Muti. I have some newer ones I printed out. Got a collection called Soliloquy and Trauma and Not So Well coming out from Cajun Mutt Press. If you're aware of Cajun Mutt, there's some good books coming from them. I'll be out in December. I had a sequence of nightmares and weird stuff going on in my mind when I go to sleep, and so I decided to kind of record some of what was going on in that. Have some weird characters that pop up in there, but I noticed that I think kind of really this week, people who deal with depression, I get really down on Thursdays for some reason. I don't get it. And that's not what the poem's about, but I just really, it was like, my wife's like, you're really the douchebag today. It's like, because it's Thursdays, douchebag Thursdays. So yeah, that's something I kind of found out about myself. But I have like this guy in my head who takes me hostage when it's telling me kill yourself and all that, and I'm just like, shut up, I'm tired of listening to you. So I nicknamed Yotimate, which is my name spelled backwards. So this one's called Yotimate and the Shattered Glass. Collect the census from the records local libraries keep on file for curious minds who dare to find the knowledge of persons noted for tax purposes long ago. Finger any given name, realize that's not just one, but two of the likenessness of doppelgangers may cause many to sneer, yet mine is the no laughing matter. His name is Yotimate, and we meet from time to time when we're feeling overwhelmed. While I insist we push through despite what the world feeds us, he counters that the trigger isn't going to squeeze itself. I mirror his image where you'd think we're brothers. Twins lost in the bustle of a moment, but he is an imposter, I must say. When his reflection appears in peripherals that need shielding, nothing makes me want to smash every glass in my radius till blood can write the suicide note librarians failed to file in decades past. I am a bundle of joy, as you get back. Alright, yeah, I guess I'll read two more. I don't know how I'm doing on time. I had a timer set and then I forgot to click it. So this one is after Kava Akbar, who I had the pleasure of meeting while up in northern Indiana a couple of years ago. It's called Deconstructing Portraits of Poets Past. Achy appendages beg for ice packs after roughly brushing black acrylic across canvases that act as stereotypes to describe artists who are hard to understand. Akbar knows the dance a man does when he's encumbered and stumbling with drink. Ask me how I want my coffee as I ponder a list of favorite ales. He's the poet who got me answering espresso with creamer. Alcohol is for the depressed author who believes authentic creativity requires axing the weeping angels fluttering in the pit. Alternatives to crash reports, assimilate, set limits, avert your tongue away from the suds anytime you must drive. I wrote this one after reading a poem from Jason here and his wonderful, well, I guess it's not the new book anymore, but it was a new book at the time.
New enough. When you put two out in a pandemic, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. This one is called When Cancer Leaves Evansville, Indiana. As I eat the best pork chops I've ever had, a longing desire overcomes me like a hunger, which doesn't dissipate from emptying of a plate. I wish this disease would break up with the city, pack its bags, and head further down the Ohio so immortality can be the new wave. We've paid our debts. You can see the stains on our face with the coming of May. Walking the plots near the airport, you can see fresh mounds of dirt filling the holes created by the lost. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Tim Heerdink. So I am super excited to hear the next poet because I have not heard her read, but I read her work and I love it. Ever since he was in, I think Brett Underwood got us talking together and along with Dorsey. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. I'm sorry.
Johnny.
My glasses suck, so even though I write and I can read my handwriting, and it's like, wait a minute, that's far down.
Oh, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jonie McIntire.
You needed something.
Hi there. I'm Johnny. I'm in Toledo, Ohio. And not entirely the same theme, but we'll have a little sadness. We'll share a little sadness. But no, in Toledo, I don't know how many tornadoes touch down around St. Louis, if Missouri is
in Missouri, we have some of that.
but not a ton. Not like the Bowling Green. We have a certain corridor just south of Toledo that's
it's not like
a hot
that,
corridor.
or like Texas. Or,
Right, okay. Well, anyway, so this is before the house lifted for Cindy, widowed by the Lake Township tornadoes. By the time we hear the sirens, candles are already lit. We run down the cellar stairs, the wind pushing green, radio chattering times, places, warnings of what it's seen. There are so many countdowns to events that never happen, but we run through the actions we practiced. The girls have cards and a blanket laid out ready to play. We giggle excitement to hear the swirling outside. Wait, you say. You'll quick up the stairs, a last-minute thought to unplug the computer. Hurry back to me. I whisper, so close, you lean in and almost blush. Okay, and then this is how my father's face shifted when he met my prom date. In a small city, there might be one, maybe two psychologists. In ours, my father. He did best with teens, which meant troubled kids with aggression issues, recidivist drug tendencies, and all manner of sexual deviance were sent to him by the courts. And every once in a while, a client who had seen me at a party or knew me from school would eye the photo on his desk, a black and white number of me at maybe 5. And they might think about last names and how small the city actually was. And might think about the party or that my skipping pep rallies by loitering in the school newspaper office did not actually make me a good student. But of course, he couldn't tell me about it. Couldn't even hint what he knew. I have this series that I call supplements, and I'm just using drugs as a jumping off point, like we all do. So this is called On the Importance of SSRIs. When our docs thinned and moved away, we had to switch to the pediatrician to renew my kid's script for Zoloft. Despite years of my child backing away slowly from panic attacks, the doctor asks, what is there to be anxious about anyway? Without even noting the scars, clearly self-inflicted, on my transgendered child's shoulders and arms. How can we answer this question? I remember once in high school, a guy friend I wasn't even interested in was playing ball with a new girlfriend of his in the side yard around the block from my house. Walking by, I caught the ball he tossed to me. Both of them smiles and sunshine, and I tossed the ball back, thwack, right into her head, like I'd aimed for it. Like the time my kid and I were driving home from the grocery store, took the exit off 75 toward our house, and watched a hawk dive hard into the metal yellow barrier at exit ramp edge, thrown back from his head into traffic by his own force. What is there to be anxious about? Nothing less than ourselves. Okay, this is a little lighter. This is called Sweet Pea. Child born early, cusping April, who struggled, pale blue face, to be born. He shoots up, green through sand, tender petals curling back to find their edges. My daughter, who is now my son, is learning how to drive. Wraps tendrils around the wheel, climbs from back seat, up front, delicate face, bright and forward. Okay, so every once in a while we'll have, we have like Ode to the Zip Code is a contest we have in Toledo. It actually originated in Florida, I believe, but they have it every year, and what you do is you take your zip code. Ours is 43612, and so the first line would have 4 words, not syllables, but words, 3, 6, 1, and 2. Okay, and we have a couple of areas that are like 43607, so the challenge is how do you deal with a 0? Okay, so anyway, so here are a couple of the Ode to the Zip Code, and it's really supposed to be like sort of a celebration of your neighborhood or something about the community or something. So, around the corner, a block away in black spray paint on shuttered chapel of St. Agnes. Don't lose hope. Next door, broken glass glitter among crabgrass and clover, beer can crush, scattered wrappers overtaken by dandelions, yellow burst. Water study. Walking dogs in rain, we study car spray, where sidewalks puddle and skip arcs like rainbows. And then this one doesn't follow the rule, okay? But it's a very short city one that I thought about as I was walking down the street the other day. Morning walk. Third weave this week, found on glass sparkle roadside under Circle K lights.
Beautiful.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
I've been finding a lot of weaves lately too.
What is that?
I don't know.
How
I'm
do
really,
they just magically fall out?
I'm never sure.
There.
But I
on
find
the
them all the time.
side
Yeah,
of
like
the road.
something got obviously a little.
Some argument
heavy.
occurred,
Mhm.
and wow. Okay, so I have some pandemic poems, but there are issues you don't even know what to say about. So anyway, or where to start, let's say. So this is self-kettled. We stop for coffee at the Tim Hortons on the way to work. Drive by buildings downtown, turned toothless. Click our tongues as we file into the elevator at work. Our sons walk at night, throw rocks at new construction, climb in the idle bobcats at the cul-de-sac edge. The cops we know wink at our daughters, cheering the fundraiser basketball games, though the firefighters always win them. You know, the firefighters versus the police. Did you guys ever have these? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. How can we believe any of what we hear? They never pepper spray the Mahonies, or even the Mitchell boy, who we all know stole his grandmother's pain pills. At work, the libertarian secretary who has a theory about everything. Have you heard about manganese in malt liquor? Says her Canadian uncle usually spends the summers here, but everything's blocked. She scrolls through Facebook posts of black and blood, streets full of crumpled milk-eyed strangers. We say yes, but the small town where the sheriff marched, the picture of the cops kneeling, we say bad apples, and can't believe there could be more than one or two. We've been trying to get passports after all of this. A trip will be so nice, but passport requests aren't being processed. No word when they'll start again. And the kid from the mailroom says the governor is sending in the National Guard before work ends. Streets are closing. We aren't sure how we'll get back home. Okay, and this is so many people sucking shit through straws. Pissed that her middle school-aged son begged her to scrape the Confederate flag sticker off the bumper of her teal Ford Focus. My cousin once moved on to launch into a lesson about George Soros and Bill Gates and CNN as we drove home from the grocery store. Everybody just sucks their bullshit right in, she says. I look around me at the red light and count no less than 8 big plastic cups with big plastic caps and people staring off into space, sucking. People everywhere, sucking shit through straws, in their cars, walking down the street, just standing around, She takes another swig of her Baja Blast and the light turns green. Suck, suck. She agrees with Breitbart and QAnon that everybody's just raking up this racism shit and causing riots, pulling into her driveway with the final and just making us white people look bad. Thank you. I'm glad you like that. Because that's my cousin Sugar Bear.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right. Okay, so why women drink? I think we've worked up to this. You see, I've been paving the way. Okay. Why women drink? It comes down to a question of weight. The mass of ourselves, bearing repeated ups and downs. We sing the sinner's Hail Mary hopes, eat wafers, wanting whole bodies. We pray to ascend, blame gravity and our thick with sin skin for keeping us heavy, our shoulders palmed by guilt. We are grateful for sweet glasses of liquid savor. We find the sun's blood makes us float. Yes, my Lord, yes. Weightless as clouds, light as a rib, as an apple seed, hollow of everything but the knowledge that liquid reaches down to roots, and we are gracious earth from which everything grows. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to end on a little something about my family, so you can put the rest in context, okay? This is about the women in my family, so this is called Magnolias and Rose Hips. The women in my family don't make friends, so my mother makes wine instead. From rhubarb to dandelion, and her retirement she's softened. She's planted magnolias all over the place. Rose hip wine this weekend, a simple recipe. The usual enzymes and yeasts. We do it in late October because the petals of the roses have fallen away, just the hard fruit left, protecting seeds. We're visiting a gray weekend with teens about to leave our nest. My mother and I pick rose hips, wear welding gloves, and wander 2 fence lines wearing aprons meant for egg gathering. While we trim the stem and blossom bits from the hip, my mother talks to the kids about our last trip, how she and I and her sister flew over the plains, them reading voraciously and me chatting up every stranger I sat next to. I catch the barb in the tail, ingratiating. That's how my mother describes me. She grins and shakes her head, says it helps to have a cruise director for a daughter. We cut and scoop, and my mother switches to talking about the wine. It has to age for 2 years in the dark, so we'll have to be patient. She's arguing with herself about sugar. It calls for 2 2/3 pounds, and she wants the alcohol but not the sweet. Always been like that. Likes the bitter but hates the sticky, like her mother, like her father. Her older sister waits to be widowed and has started calling daily. Still new, this picking past each other's thorns, still a little tender. But my mother makes plans to move her here. Later, when she's alone, the magnolias were planted for her, my aunt. Their spindly stems, not yet the sweet explosion her sister quietly loves. We pour the boiling water over the bag of chopped rose hips, over the sugar, and wait. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Jonie McIntire. Okay, let's see. Alright, so
You need to borrow my glasses, Dan.
I think I need to get a stronger prescription, actually. Either that or I am hitting the age of bifocals. So ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry,
Oh,
to
honey,
40?
most of us are
What?
past.
I'm getting there. I'm hitting there. I just hit my late 30s and I'm looking at 40. It's like,
Yeah, you got another year.
we're gonna hang out. We're gonna hang out soon.
In my 60s, and my politics and my lenses are both progressive.
Ladies and gentlemen, another poet who has come all this way up, and they will be performing in Bell tomorrow, as I'm sure basically almost everyone here except for myself is going to be.
Pretty much, this is just our warm up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, like practice here and save the good shit for Bell. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Tony Brewer.
So this is about a little trip I took to Maine a bunch of years ago. This is called Down East. Somewhere around here, Paul Stuckey started a radio station that has played Puff the Magic Dragon 24/7 since 1968. Except for break-ins from Democracy Now! And the Hightower Report. People from Boston are called massholes. Limp shutters in a convenience store tank too long are yesterday's pound. Ask a local, lived here all your life? And he'll answer, not yet. Such happy yellow rubber trousers with booties attached and suspenders extending out of a hang-down mustache as dark and downturned as the mouth underneath. He's a watercolor of a wharf, stacking cages and banding claws and thinking of his manicured ex-wife's painted nails and mouth. How she hated his Irish music. Boy, that was a deal breaker. He could have just not let her get that close instead of running all the way to Maine to escape after the divorce. But the sun isn't hiding when it doesn't show its face. A milky pearl in clam-colored skies. Here comes a squall. Snap. That's how the weather works here. A rock-bound smugness saying, you just don't know the world like we do. Thumbs under suspenders, like tongues on long bowels dying at the back of the throat. A fish slides easily through the hand until the fins prick like quills when you try to hold it fast and scale and clean and gut it. He prefers claws and armor boiling in a pot and putting up a good fight with a hammer and tongs and a long buttery fork. Imagine trying to live here without synthetics, all oilskin and sealskin and real skin against wet wool dried over a smoky fire, and at another time, blubber. Fat people rich, now fat people poor. The boat is not his life, it's got a name, like a wife. And he loves every catch he dumps on her deck, writhing like a sequin dress she's not clean enough to wear. So it just lays there, all pretty on the bed. A radio's the only thing still running when a nor'easter knocks the power out. He cranks it like a phonograph and out comes Elvis Costello, pretending he's Pete Seeger, doing a terrible Burl Ives. That tremolo wheezing forth, he'd almost rather hear the news. And off the coast, a foghorn, sounding all night, all year. Though no one lives there, ever since the keeper passed away. Remote controlled since 1958. He can tune a violin by it. G sharp. And the waves lapping the granite beach clean. Our whole rests. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me and Tim. We were going to do this last year. Shit happens. So here we are. And we're going to be back in October, right? Yeah. Back in October, hopefully. This is a Rona poem. I'm sorry I'm reading off my phone. Everybody hates people reading off their phones, but I have a copy of it, so I'm going to read it off my phone. I actually wrote this on Ferlinghetti's 101st birthday. He died like a month later. So this is called Pity for Sale. After Ferlinghetti, after Gibran. Pity the bee who has no country. Its fuzzy, swollen appetite and hardwired love of candy. Pity the window gladly accepting so many waves of heat and hand, fogged with condensation of desire. Pity the vegetable in its untouchable packet disguised as itty-bitty seeds that are mere possibilities. Pity the failed backup and make it new. Pity the ambulance, so lonely it stalks my next door neighbor twice this year alone. Alone. Pity the billionaires in love with zeros. No, fuck those clowns right in the zero. Pity the worker who identifies with a king. Pity the tree dragged down by sweet honeysuckle, the red buds pinking the woods, telling us it is time. Time. Pity the time it takes to feel, the time it takes to unfeel, to unlearn, to unlove, to unseal. Pity our ranks and forms, a slot for everyone when we all would be better off marked other. My country, 'tis not insane, but copes horrendously. Sweet land, sweet liberty. Ask any busy bee. Okay, so I'm just kind of flying right through it, but that's good. So this is going to read a couple of things from the new chapbook by Alien Buddha Press, called "The History of Projectiles," and I wanted to write about like gun issues and violence, but it's through a family lens, so it's personal. It's not like a big hot take on gun laws and all that stuff. It's I didn't have to go very far to like personalize it. I learned as I started writing about it and digging into it. So I'm going to read. It's like 6 sectioned poems, and the sections have titles. So I'm going to read 2 of those sections. And this is, make sure I get the right ones. Yeah. No difference between.
It's been waiting to get knocked out all night. Yeah.
Bam.
Taking
So-
bets on it, actually.
Right.
Bam!
Is that a
Throw the
jacket
mic down.
tower back there?
Yeah, it's kind of.
Basically, yeah.
I know.
Maybe we should set it up in
Jenga!
front of the poets
Yeah.
and see what happens.
It should be Legos. No difference between fireworks and gunfire when I flinch. Never forget the feel of that first gun snug in the shoulder. Mom as a girl, not old, in her housecoat, like a wooden hug, shooting a BB into her brother. Me, shooting starlings in the hog lot with Uncle Kenny. They swoop and peck pigbacks and we pick 'em off, sometimes winging one he grabs by one wing and slams on concrete. My aim became impeccable. I wait till the house is empty, settle into Dad's lazy boy and light one up, lie back in the big chair, tunnel vision creeping in, staring off into space, joining in the time-killing vegetable caucus. The TV silent so I can hear anyone coming. The dent in the siding of the garage is me, home alone, too timid to shoulder the shotgun. I let the aluminum take the recoil and teach myself how to eject and load another cartridge, moving smooth and confident as a movie. I get used to it. Consider intricately folded school notes passed to me third hand in study hall and speech class. Cards from Dad, love, penned in Mom's lovely script and signed in his own terse block, examined for regret and discarded and consumed. I flinch from the flickering images, look at stars, the always men and belonging to families being soldiers cannot save, and being honest is no help. Most first times are lies. 5 a.m., up with Dad before he leaves for work. He watches while I squeeze the last tobacco out of the Winston 100 butts malingering in that ashtray. I wiggle the filters out of their brown speckled sleeves, peel them apart like orange sections. The sweet, stale stink of nicotine on my fingers, his shirts, hands, breath. I don't care when the burning ember I hold up to my face pops and cracks and races toward my eye. I don't even care when a groove appears between my first and middle finger. The pen fits right in there. Slammed ammo on the kitchen table silences Mom after threatening to leave himself dead in a ditch somewhere his target intimate as grains defined by caliber. His lazy boy pops like a 12-gauge, chambering a cartridge when he pulls the wooden lever and reclines back into a 50-inch scream of sports he mostly sleeps through, and movies so loud they sound like news. Except when I find him, he is crying, and the TV is quiet, not silent. I never shot anything larger than a chipmunk, and the mighty chipmunk god sneers, "That doesn't matter." A glance down the sight, a squeeze of the trigger, the papers ignite, but no memory is lost. I recall the killing as part of growing up, where no killing can get it out. It takes a decade for his open heart to recover. The staples heal over quick, and life shifts and resettles like buckboard dynamite. His fuse short as my fragile visit tingles like a phantom limb. I've been doing this every reading this year. I'm I think legally, but definitely morally obligated to perform this poem at every reading that I do this year, because I wrote it in 2004 when the 17-year cicadas were back. The last time the 17-year cicadas were back,
Okay.
and they were really bad. And I wrote this as I was on Poetry Slam team at the time, and actually wrote this as a team piece, but it's kind of morphed into a song and dance. So it's called Cicada Blues, chorus 10 and 17. Ooh, love to love you, baby. Ooh, love to love you, baby. Ooh, love to love you, baby. I will come back for you, baby. Maybe 17 years from tonight, but I will come for you. Up through the ground from a hole this big, and I'll crawl. I'll crawl across the lawn, baby. Drag my freshly hatched ass over sidewalks and quiet city streets just to get you to come to me. I'll climb the most convenient tree I find and shed this hard, crusty exterior and back out of my pupil state. And when I'm dry and strong enough and I unfurl my clear wings, I will call to you, call to you, call to you, call to you. And I hope you'll hear me among the million brothers in this humble acre, alone, vying for your attention, and that you'll come to me. Come to me now, baby. Please don't make my soul wait on the cold ground another 17 long years. Come land on my beach branch and we'll make sweet butt-to-butt love and place our progeny within the spent sapling soil pulp under a heavy haze of June on a long-lost Indiana afternoon, and then together we'll die. Ooh, love to love you, baby. Ooh, love to love you, baby. Thank you.
Let's give him another round of applause for Tony Brewer. So, as you can see, I changed shirts because I tried colors and they just don't work for me.
That's not.
What did
You
you
need
come
to
up with?
keep changing, Dan. That is not working either.
Different shirt every reader.
Do not tempt me because I will do it.
Different shirt every reader, man.
Oh, I'm coming back with God Save the Queen. Ladies and gentlemen, another poet making the sojourn all the way from Ohio. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Adrian Lime.
All right, thanks. It's good to be here. I just changed my order because I had a couple poems that kind of mesh with some other ones, and I don't usually do that. I usually practice everything out. But anyway, I'm going to read, and one of them I've never read out before. This one I have is because we just took a trip, just took a walk through the park. It's very hot and humid, so this is called A Trip to the Zoo. It's 90 degrees and sticky, humid, and she is pushing her 3-year-old toddler in a stroller, her 5-year-old son alongside. He's asking for a snack she doesn't have. He says, "But I just want it." And she tells him over and over there is no snack to have. She's not keeping it for herself. There is no snack. She doesn't have one. The snack is gone. but he insists, and she is losing patience. Each time they roll past a Pepsi vendor or lemon ice stand, the toddler's hands spring forth from the stroller, fingers flexing, clutching, pulsing, grabbing at, grabbing for, begging, crying, repeating, I want, I want, I want, I want. In 36 hours, she will be in a corporate boardroom with a group of middle management men having basically the same conversation. They will ask for something, and when they are informed that something does not exist, they will ask for it again. She will keep her patience lightly beneath her skin and point out, again, sometimes using spreadsheets and charts, why, again, the non-existent is non-existent. Before the long walk back to the van where she will pack up the stroller and bags, the sleeping toddler and cranky son, she stops, pauses before the exotic bird enclosure to watch those colorful birds brightly flitting back and forth and back again, branch to branch, carefree and unburdened by the world outside, every day within their 4 glass walls, every day beneath their broad glass ceiling. And this one, I've not read out loud before, but I just want to read it. It's called Lady on the Condom Machine. On an old, worn, white metal box in the wall in the bathroom of a small club in West Toledo, a cowgirl on the label of a condom machine. Picture this scene: crimson chaps, silver fringe with matching Stetson and boots, topless as all rugged cowgirls must be, tasseled pasties discreetly covering the nipples of teardrop breasts that the exact shape of youth. Her skin is flawless and smooth, creamy white flushed with pink, but ink has faded through decades, leaving an overall hue of chartreuse blushing toward turquoise. She holds a 6-shooter erect, which appears too large for her slight hand as her lips freeze, pursed to blow, to have blown gun smoke from the tip. A twinkle in her eye. But has it been airbrushed for effect, or is this the sparkle flash of some slick agent coercing fresh new talent into the studio? The CoverGirl promise of full-page spreads. Did she know what she was getting into? Did she think it was exciting? Did she know? Either way, she seems self-assured, and we lock eyes as I am in a particularly vulnerable moment. And with that seductive look on her face, you know exactly what she wants. She wants you to put a quarter in the machine. Or perhaps 50 cents if you're a gentleman, more concerned with her pleasure. She can't be more than 20 years old there, and if she has weathered the storms of life, God willing, and the deductibles don't rise, today she is someone's Busha or Nana or Yaya, sending cards with crisp $5 bills on birthdays, even to her 50-year-old children. And she never misses a holiday card to all of the grand and step-grandchildren. They know the smell of her house. It's a nice little house with petunias in front, the bowl of scented fabric flower petals on bath stand, line of porcelain elves along kitchen window sill. Everyone in the neighborhood knows the rasp of her voice, the firmness of her hugs, how she whistles in her spring garden. Birds know her feeders all winter with extra sunflower seeds for the cardinals and a fat palm slap on the window for blue jays. Picture this scene: crimson chaps, silver fringe with matching Stetson and boots, tucked beneath warm Afghans and soft bed linens, nestled next to a tied bundle of letters in a stout cedar chest at the foot of a bed in the bedroom of a nice little house in West Toledo. All right, so I was going to start out reading love poems, so I'm going to read this one, which is called Love is Something Like Hot Sauce.
Nice.
I'm not saying that hot sauce is love, or that hot sauce is the meaning of life. All I'm saying is we make certain promises to each other and then fate takes over. It's like at our wedding when we stood together beneath that giant oak tree, and it was beautiful and symbolic, and I heard a noise and looked up and an acorn hit me in the head. It's like that is what I'm saying. Or it's like how even though it's not your job to mow the yard, you still secretly envy the pride I take over freshly cut clover. And yes, I know you would mow our sad little clover yard if I were gone, but I'm not. We're in this together. And it's like the time at the hospital with the emergency C-section, and Scott had an APGAR score of 2. And we looked at each other. Ooh, hang on a second.
Yeah, it just hit you, doesn't it?
Right. Do you remember how we looked at each other when we realized that life and death were both present and that we needed to be together, and it was both terrifying and serene? It's like that too. Or it's like how when I do the dishes, it's always in the afternoon, and that drives you bonkers because when you do the dishes, it's early in the morning, which leaves you, as you say, the entire rest of the day to do a lot, actually, but not mowing our sad little clover yard, that's for sure. But maybe it's mostly like when you get me a little something just because I've had a rough day, and I come home from work to find hot sauce. And it's the good kind of hot sauce I like. Only usually it's too expensive to justify buying, so it was probably on sale. But either way, you saw it and thought of me, and so there it is. And truthfully, it isn't about hot sauce at all. What I'm saying is this. We may not know what fate will throw at us, but we know just the ways to make each other happy. Love is like that. So I'm going to finish up. I work at the Jeep plant on the assembly line. I'm going to read a short one and then a longer one. This one's called Adjustments. At the Jeep plant today from across the commissary, I saw Becky Lautner, that's not her real name, hook her 2 rough thumbs through the fabric of her Iron Maiden t-shirt, deep into a recess of her brassiere, and with a slight wince and a sort of swooping grace, hoist her 2 frankly massive breasts into a more comfortable, or maybe just a less uncomfortable position. And if that's not enough already to spark notice, she then heaved out such a cathartic sigh of relief that even I felt it. From all the way across this field of laminate tabletops and baked light lunch trays, and it made me instantly and hopefully forgivably feel a little guilty for complaining about my aching feet. All right, so this is the last one. It's a longer one. I'm not sure if it's a poem or prose poem or short fiction or what it is, but it comes from those jobs. It's called 2 Birds. The assembly line is a monster that is always hungry, and you feed it all day long for 30 plus years if you're lucky. Cycles of 40 seconds, 12 hours per day for most of your adult life. It's important to point at something specific in the blur that is the last week or month, and to give that a name and to make it mean something. So complaining becomes a pastime. Everyone here has the toughest job in the factory. The assembly line is a monster that is always hungry, and as the years pass, you complain, and your back begins to hunch, and your legs begin to bow, and your hands slowly distort to better fit your tools. You sometimes quietly pray for a breakdown somewhere to stop the line, even just for a minute, and when it finally happens, you look at each other and you say, "Free money, I'll take it." Or you say, "Any downtime is good time," and you drink water and you rub fists into your back. The assembly line is a monster that is always hungry until it isn't. Until the economy dips and the company decides to ship some jobs overseas, but not too many, and they'll only close 1 plant each in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, so as not to overburden one region. But it's your plant that closes. And so now you're trying to decide whether any downtime is actually good time. And your buddy who works at the stamping plant down the street rattles you daily that you should have expected this and planned better. God knows he has. Now you and 6,000 other workers spend your days making what money you can, and your nights are restless with hard hands rubbing the back of your sweaty neck. And what sleep you get are just dreams of getting back into that plant you hope to get out of. The days still blur by, but now each day is a new worry, a new grind to see if there is work available anywhere, what you can get, for how long, what's the pay, and is it worth it? You'll take the job even if it isn't. There is no more monster to feed until one day there is, and isn't it great they're opening the factory back up? But you don't really believe it anyway until the power plant starts buzzing back, and you see the smokestacks start belching gray steam, and the wastewater slow starts to froth, and you get that call from your steward. Are you still around? You are. You go through the gate and head toward your station, and you find that you've only been back for 30 seconds, and you already feel like you wish it were quitting time. And everyone walking that corridor with you is bow-legged, with igloo coolers and gallons of water from Kroger. The whole building is humming, but it matches the humming of your bones, and so you suddenly realize that you're not just hungry, but hungry for that noise and heat and grease and the callus that will split and that you will filthily suck at the line breaks you silently pray for. You walk past the wall of welder transformers, which makes you think back to the day 2 little birds flew into the body shop and couldn't figure out how to get out. How one of them just hid away up in the trusses and even stayed around for months, occasionally pecking food from dumpsters and sometimes even shitting on the boss's desk, which made it an honorary union member as far as you're concerned. But the other one panicked and madly darted back and forth while the workers all chuckled and pointed, because if that idiot bird would just fly out of the dock bay door, he'd be free. And we smiled and we called him Bird Brain until he slammed into that heavy steel cage wall by the transformers and momentarily stunned himself. And suddenly it's not so funny as we all realized together that little fellow was going to kill himself. So now there's this phalanx of union workers with long-handled push brooms held high and beer bellies blobbing from beneath t-shirts, trying to guide the tiny bird out of the dock door like fat, awkward cattlemen wrangling a frantic calf. And there's a good moment there when we all think it's working until it flies high, fast, suddenly plonking beak first into a second-story window and tumbles down to the floor so softly that when it strikes the cement, it doesn't even make a sound. The push brooms lower, and we all look for a few moments until someone sweeps the body out of the door and off the dock. The sudden memory of those 2 little birds is still buzzing in your mind as you finally get back to your station that seems to have been patiently waiting for you all those months. And it strikes you then that you've worked with people like that, who had those panicked eyes and shaky hands and steamed up safety glasses, who missed their rivets just because they were afraid they were going to. And no matter what you say to them, they cannot shake that feeling until one day they just walk out of the factory and never come back. And then it hits you just as hard that makes you the other bird, the one that's still trapped but doesn't seem to mind. And you wonder, as you line up your tools and check your stock, which bird you would rather be. But your air pressure is good and the bell sounds, so you just depress that safety button and fire 7 steel rivets into the fender bar, smoothly dead center, 3 in the middle, 2 on each side. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Adrian Lime. That's just fucking beautiful, man. So the next poet I've had the pleasure of being on tour with for a while, and even sharing what was it, River Fin?
I think we shared at least one river fin.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's my world.
Right.
I just want to say that shirt is much better
Right.
before we get
Yeah.
back to
Oh yeah.
No,
I said I'd change it to my God Save the Queen Sex Pistols t-shirt, and I did.
Better choice.
I've got so many other band t-shirts.
Well, I
just
expect
waiting.
another one then.
I don't mind doing another load of laundry if it means proving a point. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage one of my personal favorite poets, a former tour mate, Mr. Jason Baldinger.
Thanks to Damn Right for allowing us to crash his pad here.
Drink his beer.
Yeah, and drink it, yeah, for sure. That's really the important part. I could have read anywhere but the
Please
beer.
make sure his beer is gone by the end of the night.
Exactly. Do a service to a poet. Clean out his beer cabinet before he realizes he may end up sober. All right, first poem. For Patrick Beard and the Rusty Razors. This poem is for Patrick Beard and the Rusty Razors, who played barefoot on one leg to an empty bar on a Red River Tuesday, an off night for musical tourism. My last name got recognized. It had nothing to do with a candy store. As I walked down 6 Sunday afternoon, cheers echo as my cousin centers the line while Danny White gets ghosted by history. Irma Thomas covers rattle the window, duck in for a beer, the next venue, the next beer, the next venue, the next beer, repeat till neon swims, repeat until Patrick Beard and the Rusty Razors finish their first set to an empty bar. I've played to empty rooms, read to scatters of peoples in more places than I can count, and it's a sobering experience. I can't leave empty bars while a band plays. There's no one to witness. Did these moments even exist? Before the second set, Beard buys me a beer. He knows I can't run away now. But the band is insufferable. Barely competent jug band or off night, it's your fucking time. West Texas hellscapes await, grinding metal and sunshine, my stomach and head will not be the youth of tomorrow. There's enough gas stations to make it across the endless without having to bury a roadside shit like a Cadillac on the LBJ ranch. You know, he used to do his business in the Oval Office with the doors open, negotiating votes, trousers around his ankles. It was the 60s then, and no one dared light a match. Mesas give way to the bottom of the ocean. I'll need an ice cream sandwich to make change. I'm drunk when the band Girlfriend arrives. I trade out my audience membership, knit highways in a manner that made sense sober. How I found this hangover is assumed, but still unknown. I was at the post office the day after Eddie Van Halen died. I know all the ladies that work at the post office pretty well, and Patty says to me, "You hear Eddie Van Halen died?" I said, "I did." And she said, "I saw them in 1984, and then she gave me a look. This poem is what the story in that look must have been." Civic Arena, March 7th, 1984. Snow on the dash. Snow crunches under the tires of a 77 Rabbit. Her friend's boyfriend with a handful of pills to share. She's plastered a pint in her jeans. Security never looked anyway. Into the dark of the floor, fog machine smells, the pills slowing down, speeding up together. Diamond Dave glitter blur and fuzz this far away. Running with the devil into eruption, she never cared for long solos but whiskey and counting. 23 times for the word jump. It's infinity. What's infinity? Drunk enough on her boyfriend's shoulders, arms up gigantic as they tore into Ain't Talking About Love. Last song and it's everything. Spinning. Freedom is a ghost waiting to go numb. The post office ain't the same. Wild ones. There ain't nothing wild left of what remains. Let go of Atlantis. Jerry believes in ivory soap. He believes in starched collars. His spine is straight. He says all the flying plagues of Florida are nearsighted. Don't give them room to smell. I miss the manatees out in some cove near the launch pad that's etched in our consciousness. I see it in the rear view, and I want to write about shoveling snow as a boy, about dreams exploding, about hot cocoa and Krista McAuliffe. Jerry says for 15 bones, they'll give me a sea kayak, and I can paddle over the surf into a barrier island all my own. Out there cooking hamburger helper over a pocket rocket, I'll turn ahead or back time. I'll forget my couth and go native. Going native is a racist term meant to minimize the people who were killed so this land could be our land, a universe of violence. It seems that every inch of this land is steeped in blood, and I wonder if a barrier island off the coast of the Atlantic may be one of the few places I can step where that blood doesn't well up, a hot spring of unacknowledged history. I'm going to stay out here, an island a mile away from civilization. The sun paints the sky every 12 hours. Every day the ocean steps a little higher. And when it reaches my neck, I'll know it's time to let go of Atlantis. Our temporary time. I think this ended up in Live Nude Poems recently. In the weeds of another year ended, feeling like the ghost of Dennis Hopper feeding a raccoon pancakes hot off the griddle. I know a woman who told stories of raccoons and saltwater taffy and junkies running the hallways of the Ohio River abandoned. But this isn't about Dennis Hopper. This isn't about trash pandas, junkies, or persons who lose themselves in the mazes of their mind. This isn't about Bob Kaufman or the working class. Both are dead. This isn't about the Ohio carrying microplastics to the Mississippi, to the ocean. It's about abandon. How I miss the ocean, how we deserve the ocean. Lights blink out across the consciousness of this organism planet. I think of the ocean, its temporary roar matching our temporary time. Really short poem if you have the new River Dog package. You already have this, but this is a little road haiku. eating a pride flag in the Greyhound or Grey Line terminal, watched over by owls. This is the closest I get to an ekphrasiastic poem. It's called Mr. Clarinet. It's for Ben Shahn, and it's inspired by a painting of the same title. Here's to anxiety, Mr. Clarinet. I never thought this would be the first day or the last day in the garden. Eden is Detroit in midwinter, and we're full of heavy Mexican food, dreams of tres leches to fill out these stone parameters. We're playing shuffleboard, cold pint glasses, grains of sand, and Adam and Eve are at it on the couch. Eve straddling Adam, locked in embrace. The dry hump Olympics last more than one beer. Mr. Clarinet, maybe you could draw down your knotted hands, bring up the horn with its reed on fire, and blow something from your belly that makes us think about how we'll feel when time dies. Remind us that with all the careful construction of mythology, that God has failed. Mr. Clarinet, bring up the horn with a scary clown, play an elegy that sounds like Jimmy Giuffre chasing Raymond Scott, while Adam and Eve swallow each other's tongues as penance for being evicted. They are static electricity, sparks oblivious to selfies. Mr. Clarinet, the anxiety is real every fucking day, in or out of the garden, and Eve has dismounted and she is smoothing fabric. Adam is bow-legged, and you're right to keep your hands covering the horror. The patrons are holding up scores on tablets as Adam and Eve walk into exile. And when we finish our beers, we'll follow them into the night. Not a snake in sight. This is called It Was a Golden Time. Been on the road long enough now to feel like 3 mummified frogs dried in a Tejas mud puddle. A woman in a Walmart parking lot shouts, "I don't believe you should leave a baby in a car even if it is running." I steal what I need. Scoundrel hunter-gatherer from ancient times. There's a dead bear in an irrigation ditch. Left me with this strange feeling that I'd been here before. The windshield grows a mustache. I see the world clearer in my dreams. The problem is, I never remember my dreams. Alright, this is called God is Back in Town. Power of Love follows Ghostbusters. Joe Namath sells Medicare supplements. Now voices carry for the 3rd time in less than a week, and it might be 1985, except I'm in Youngstown sipping a Negroni, not 9 years old with no concrete knowledge of time. And God is back in town. Other than thunderstorms, there is no evidence of a deity. Only empty streets and bars where the Keep named the cats after the former president and his first lady. I want to give my beer back and walk through the dark of the pool room into the lightning strikes. Heat evaporates in fat drops of rain. I leap the river along the curb, hope to spot a penguin. Days pass what doesn't feel like my 45th birthday, and still no concrete knowledge of time. I'll do 2 more for you. This is for Tim. This is called a constellation of data. At the stop sign, a tree glitches on my left and blurs, moves between or bleeds through this timeline. This is a cumulative effect of overindulgence. Is it still last night's dream abandoned without manifest? I say out loud something about the Matrix. I say it to no one in particular. Make another note about dystopia, Thomas More, John Stuart Mill. I remember it next time I throw a stick from a mountain out into the void and watch it flash. Another glitch, a constellation of data disappears. I'll stand on a rock watching static at the edge of my vision, know if I reach that specific spot and peel, the graph paper lines that this world pivots on will be visible in that endless negative space. I'll wander breathless with the muffled sounds between worlds, that same shock as diving into the bottomless waters of the blue hole, where you sink with no bottom to push off, the lifeless desert above, never making a sound. This is called These Blue Veins. There's a copy of Leaves of Grass aging in the back window of my Saturn. Cover now sun-bleached, dog-eared, torn, well-toned, with car windows down, pages wriggle free to blow in the wind of interstate America. I brought Walt along for ceremony in 2012 on day 2 of 75 cross-country travels, getting down to the real America wherever. On morning 2 with Reverend co-pilot and a night in Baltimore ahead, we sat in that green corner by the lake at Harlee Cemetery, reading Whitman and Whitman while he brushed wisps of the Civil War's hair. I tramp a perpetual journey, looking for the soul in the eyes of this lost nation, looking for myself in the mirrors of maps strewn across the front seat. Walt has traveled with me ever since, a talisman for luck on these endless miles where anything is a moment lost in the weight of every other moment, where every city is fading in the full throat of the rear view. And I can't count all the small town stars and fireworks, all the sunsets and loneliness found across these blue veins. Like that, years pass, and I'm standing in a car wash vacuuming the Saturn for one last ride, holding that dog-eared, abused talisman. And I can't throw it out. In a trash can, in the last of winter, in the last of winter's light, even if it is wholly disposable, it carries weight. Oh, how sweet the silent backwards tracings.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Jason Baldinger. And, I'm very familiar with that copy of Leaves of Grass. Cause when you, Dorsey and I were going to
Do you want me to mail it to you?
Well, no, I was sitting in the back seat. I was just going like, oh, there's Whitman. I feel like at peace right now.
I bought a new car, so I bought a new Leaves of Grass
Took
for the new car.
fade again.
Yeah.
Well,
So if you want the old
I was
copy
gonna say,
for...
what happened to
no,
that?
dude, you have to have that is.
I'm going to put it in a Ziploc when I
You
finally
need
get
to,
the
you
car.
need to like, you
Yeah.
just put it somewhere in his house. He finds
It's
it
still
at
in
some
Pittsburgh.
point.
It wouldn't be any different from all the other copies I already have of Leaves of Grass.
Yeah, that is your best shirt.
Oh, Keith Richards for president?
That is-
Oh,
Yeah.
that
I
is
don't know
good.
why you think that God Save the Queen, like, no, that is far better shirt.
Alright, well, this is the one I'm keeping.
As has been pointed out, real poets don't wear Rolling Stone shirts.
Well, yeah, no, like that has been pointed out to me many a time. And as a joke, a friend of mine who actually prints T-shirts printed out the Rolling Stones tongue on one shirt, and on the back wrote "Real poets don't wear Rolling Stones T-shirts."
You're incorrect, Tintar Kelly, but that's okay.
So, funnily enough, like, so the Saturday before before the lockdown happened, I was actually walking down South Grand, which is just over this way. I bought a copy of Leaves of Grass for a friend of mine, and it was this sort of like gold tilted copy, really fancy looking. And I'm just walking down the street. This dude comes up to me like, "Hey man, is that a Bible?" I just look at him like, "Yeah, it is."
Sure.
It is. You are
It
correct.
was actually a Saturn man.
Right.
Yeah, it was the only way I got that Saturn started the last 2 years.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the second half of the show, and it is my pleasure to welcome all the way from Ohio, Ms. Kerry Trautman.
Oh, me. Okay. So since we are in relative close proximity to the Gasconade River, I should read some poems from Gasconade Review. So I'll start with those. This one is called Salttooth. The sweet ones are forgiven their obvious leanings towards toffees or meringue. Indulging a craving for caramel is justly becoming of a lady, respecting human mastery over sugarcane and cassia bark, kitchen scientists tempering chocolate for the greater good. But you, insolent saboteur, coerce my tongue toward fat-cut French fries oozing peanut oil and doused in malted vinegar. You beg the crystalline flakes hiding in bites of aged English cheddar, or the crisp of taquitos, or the yielding of a calzone crust that to what it wraps hot in its garlic-dusted belly, or soft chili dogs handed through the car window by a summer job 16-year-old. Shh, my salt-toothed friend, salivating urges ancient as survival, inborn as a lust for fire-charred meat. Don't remind me of the shape of my animal teeth, that barbecue sauce and gravy and ketchup are but flavor cousins of blood. To a friend who moved to Florida, 2. We know blizzards. Their white oblivion beyond our windows. You cowered in your girlhood basement while a tornado growled over your house. We know broken glass and fences, blackout, flood, and lightning. But this Hurricane Irma, whiter than your Florida, dangling into hot fuel ocean like a child's stray toe, tempting underbed monsters. This is new. This could swallow your new life, take you further from me than you already flew. You wait, collected batteries, water bottles, shuttered windows with dark, stayed for 3 days of waiting in dark. I watch swirled color CNN maps, trace projected past with fingertips on the screen, resting there, your town beneath my fingertips, shielded. We took a road trip, coming here. We've been in the car all day, so I thought I'd read a couple driving poems. This one is Driving Between Findlay and Toledo. I have become familiar with accumulated junk along the I-75 center concrete wall. Hunks of semi-tire, nylon-webbed lawn chair, deer carcasses and coyote, red throw pillow, then a mile north, a brown one. Milk jug filled 3/4 with what I assume is piss. Debris as recognizable as the real landmarks. Wind turbines, adult bookstore billboard, water towers, CSX railroad bridge, rural airport with toy planes swooped overhead, swimming pool store with huge blue empties standing on end. Then this morning, a turquoise and neon orange striped sneaker appeared like a poppy bloomed overnight from across the street neighbor's brown yard. That one asphalt spot now living where just yesterday was only stone and tar, like a wink of a passing car, a laughing burst from a backseat baby's throat. My mind is a driven past hubcap or scrap of fender or shattered taillight ground into gravel, all flown past. Someone singing alone to Prince or tapping their GPS screen or daydreaming cakes or crying in regret or practicing answers to an interview. There are landmarks and then there are brief objects to perhaps land eyes on. I am at best a sudden stripe of neon rubber. Driving the Pennsylvania Turnpike, early spring. Hillside silos and cows, brown with occasional calves, black foals lie folded, leggy in mare shadows. Craggy boulder strata weep yesterday's rain, steep down to highway's shoulders. A small white church chalks itself into a valley town with crisp wood homes exhaling gray grit from stone chimneys. If our transmissions should ruin themselves here, our mechanicals and bodies would be repaired and sheltered below misted buzzards caped outward and sycamores whittled by centuries of brittle winters. Until we are serviced enough to leave, there will be at least enough of everything. Read a spring poem that's a little bit later, kind of. This is called Shorts. The weak spring sun manages to warm the street-level downtown air to something like comfort, coaxing out the teen girls to the storefront sidewalks, eager in their shorty shorts and thick, pale winter thighs, chilled but thrilled to stretch and strut with platform sandals popping up their calves, striding out towards what's ahead. One girl, in a red t-shirt, suddenly jumps with a sudden punch of dread. Perhaps it was her mind's trick of a shadow of a ghost in moonlight's underawning shade, but looking again, She had seen merely a shop owner's quavering pot of stargazer lilies. She shakes it off, re-struts the youthful lengths of her legs, bending nowhere quickly as she can. If only the sunbeams could be for her and the others always the worst of her fears. If only lilies could be for him, for them, the worst of what's ahead. Waiting out the rain. We wait in the car, rather than sprint into the store for milk, beans, whatever fills our bellies, our pantry. The baby strapped in her seat fixates on window rivulets. We are impervious inside our pummeled bubble, able to jot a poem despite the soft gray cloud overhead, rivering its wealth of April to our roof, to the oily asphalt of the grocer's lot, to the windblown carts dinging forsaken dodges, to the blue-haired, hooded grandma scuttling past, in for her car's worth. This one's kind of summary. This is called To the Cousins. It is as if you never knew. Those summers riding bicycles through campgrounds to the beach, returning by dusk for the fire, blackened marshmallows stuck to each other's lips and fingertips and hair, as if everything would be joined sweetly, together forever. It is as if you thought you would be girls, always, and never women, mothers. Girls fantasizing about being sisters, lamenting the real ones, blood enough to love Shakespearean, then say goodbye for months at a time, giggling into purple pen pal ink and scratch and sniff Snickers, reunited at the whim of the mothers. It is as if those lake breezes that whipped your smoked hair like damp snakes across sunblindness would still themselves or not. None of it was up to you. We drove through rain coming here, so this one is called Day-Long June Downpour. A red sedan half sunk in brown highway ditch muck. Woman emerging, arms first, from the window. Tow truck man watching from rained-on gravel. Were there startled snapping turtles? Did she salvage her purse? Is a daughter waiting at a packed bowling alley? A husband awaiting news of dinner? How long did she wait, sinking, before birthing herself out? To the singer boy. The near-empty downtown warehouse bar feels more like home to me tonight because I've had enough of this love shit. It's like when you, the one good singer at tonight's sad open mic, finished your set and the air slumped cold like clay across the shoulders of the room and I hated you for having been willing to be so beautiful. You looked like you're in high school and afraid, despite how perfectly you strum and sing into shadowed oak. Someone should tell you not to be. Should tell you to have a bourbon with the middle-aged lady at the far end of the glossy bar and both be not afraid anymore together. Earlier, my younger sister admitted she had been afraid of my leftover high school shadow. Maybe it was a shadow she had cast with her own hands and a bare bulb onto her bedroom wall. It's doubtful anyone had noticed I left its halls or noticed when I still slouched at its desk, whispering behind its typewriters, nibbled flaccid green beans at its formica tables. High school taught me to love boys like you and to be forgotten by boys like you, lessons I didn't absorb as readily as world history or geometry. All those beheaded queens and obtuse angles had practical applications after all. I have to leave soon because no one knows I am here nor will notice when I'm gone. It's not like anyone stays forever, right? You are on stage again with an amp you don't need. I don't want to tell you to turn it off because it's untrue and loud. And right now I could use some dark, real whispers. Since we're not in Toledo and not near this person, I can read this one. This is called Poet with a Comb Over. How can someone as observant as you, whose lifetime is spent concluding motive behind the subtlest of motions, like whether the bird grew his feathers blue to feel kin to the sky, or whether the young girl released her grip on her green balloon because its light bobbing on her wrist mocked her, reminding her she had no choice but to be grounded, how can you not see that those hairs sprung from your left temple, grown, I must assume, a foot long now, to stretch up and across the dome of your otherwise well-aged skull, and on down the right side, those hairs are being asked to perform an unnatural duty. Hair's desire is to flow lazily downward, like rivers. Have you never noticed in the years of your eyes' intent looking, translating the world through your pen, finding beauty in the world with all of its flaws displayed and bare? Have you never noticed that hair is a gravitational thing, susceptible to breeze and sex and dancing? Did no lover ever ask, after a bath, as the left side hung free, dripping your left shoulder, biceps, the gleaming, just cleaned head skin, tautly damp and aired, ask to cut it for you? Offer to stroke it smooth, relax it, snip. Now, there, it's over. Breathe. There are a lot of poems in this particular book about fires. This one is called Soot. When the demo crew went to work on the burnt-out building, the scent of soot was released upon Main Street like spores, reminding drivers-by of a century of bones beneath brick walls. The soot held the sweat of the pawn shop owner waking, haunted by stories from a storefront window below. The fur of 12 cats fed that one last time by the body of the old lady herself. The spit of a black couple evicted for walking too hard on their own damn floors. The cigarette smoke, burnt toast, smack grit, Aquanet, pine sol, love's baby soft, bong smoke, bacon grease. Trucks smashed and crumbled the heaps into other trucks that rumbled it all away. To where, I don't know, but soot lingers there, awaiting scrubbing and a second chance at holding some things together. Just a couple more. This one is a poem I wrote for John before I knew John. Before I knew John. This poem is called Nemesis. Before I knew John. Okay. That man has, on 2 different evenings, risen in the middle of my readings and left. Once to the bathroom and once simply gone. If I knew him, I would know why he hates me. Perhaps I'd once convinced a teary old girlfriend drinking in the corner of a party complaining he forgot her birthday to dump him. Perhaps I dinged his car in the parking lot with my windblown grocery cart. Perhaps we'd once worked together, his face different now with the beard, and perhaps I disparaged his work to our surly boss. If I knew him, I might guess perhaps he's a little bit in love with me. My reading poems about my husband, children, causing him to seethe with jealousy. Like a red-hot curtain behind the eyes, and when I mention sex, he's ashamed, wishing for me a younger girl's coy inhibitions. Perhaps as a child, he has a feverish, prolonged inner ear infection, scarring tender membranes, susceptible now to painful vibrations from the specific frequency of my voice. Regardless of the reason, when I see again tonight his aloof, lolled head in the audience, I grit my molars, sweat a little. I want to ask what his favorite sandwich is, then eat one in front of him. I want to fling my notebook like a discus into the left lens of his eyeglasses. Want to know who his grandmother is so I can ring her doorbell and insult her appearance on her own front porch. I want to locate and rip in half his favorite photograph of his beloved dog, long since dead. I want to push the mic stand over with a dramatic squeal of feedback, the top hitting the bridge of his soft nose, tearing his eyes. I want to make him cry, at least to flinch, to move him to remember me for something, if apparently not for my poems. I want to stand on his lap and shake him by the shoulders, ask him what I've said or read or not said or written well enough or not spoken it just so. I want to know why he doesn't want to listen to me. And I want to ask the other poets in the room if they've ever seen him too.
Wow.
I guess
To answer your question, Roman's corned beef is my favorite saying.
Alright, I'm gonna read one more. Just because I wrote this, it's a road
Can we
trip
expect you to eat a Roman's corned beef sandwich when
Yeah,
it's
it's
in
in
October?
October.
I'm
Easy
willing
enough to
to
get.
do it.
Oh, I don't know
to
if
do
they're
it.
still open.
I'm gonna read one more. This one, just because we drove I-70 here, and this was an I-70 poem from a while back. This is called Mortar. Avoiding I-70 construction, instead on US 40, Little Sister Parallel just south, driving through single stoplight, Louisville, Indiana, population 366, total area a quarter mile. We pass their 1902 Opera House, haunted, brick, with iron frame storefronts on the grounds of a burnt out 1893 building. In Ohio, 2 garage bands share a bassist, play their first ever gigs before the poets read in the backyard of a 1915 brick former mansion in Toledo's Old West End. Earnest, jumping as they strum and whip their long hair off their faces, drummers dutifully banging beats to lead the way. The tiny Opera House sign advertises the next show is Rent. And I imagine all the Mimis, Marks, and Rogers in fishnets or scarves, prepping audition songs in farmhouse attics, belting glory to the unseen rafter bat, tractors and Mack trucks rumbling walls in place of the F-train. The backyard band kids hawk t-shirts for gas money, pack up cords and amps, flirting with girls who ask to pluck their strings while the poets take their turns at the mic. Concrete butts flick to the cracked concrete patio and hostas as a finch alights on a brick parapet. We listen to each other, pretend ourselves over traffic, swoosh and sirens, feedback squeals and drunken laughter. Mortar crumbles, slips to the ground, but the bricks don't fall, just now. Asphalt splits from July heat and weight of chassis, but roads hold out another week. And something about a bunch of 17 and 20-year-olds still wanting to be rock stars means everything will be okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Kerry Trautman.